All right, we should be working in just a moment. YouTube always takes a little bit of time to fire up. Let's go YouTube. Let's see if we're working over here. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. If you can see this, post something in the chat and we should get started momentarily. All right. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. All right, I think we're working now. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. And in this video, we're going to be, as always, helping you become a more confident, fluent English speaker. And today I want to talk about what fluent speakers really study. So this is, again, the people who get fluent typically do things differently than what most learners do, and that's why they become fluent speakers. So it's no surprise. This should be an entertaining, interesting, helpful video. Excuse me. And as always, if you have any questions, you can just post them in the comments. I'll keep my eye on this. This is kind of a special video. I had not planned on doing this today, but something happened to me yesterday, and I thought I would just tell this story and create a lesson out of this. But also the other reason is because I'm always asked by learners how they can continue speaking and why they get stuck in conversations. And a big part of this is because of how they learn, and I'm going to talk more about that specifically. So how learners, so typically English learners who know a lot of English, but they still struggle to speak. And then we also have the fluent speakers. And these could be fluent speakers like native speakers, so they grow up in an English-speaking country, or anyone else who's just learning English and they become fluent. So I want to talk about how these two groups are different, what they do, and specifically helping people with this problem of not being able to find the right words in conversations, even if they study these words a lot. So let me check chat right quick, make sure we're working. Pabina, nice to see you there. Dragon, let's see, from Arago, nice to see you there. Drema, it's been a while. Drema, nice to see you again. Let's see, Renee from Brazil. Maria, thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge. It's my pleasure. I know what it's like to struggle to speak, so I'm always here to help people get fluent. So when I was coming to Japan, or even many years before that, trying to learn different languages and still not being able to speak, I knew how frustrating that was. I could feel that every day when I would try to communicate and I couldn't, like the right words just wouldn't come to me. So that's why I make these videos and courses and the other things I do. Pabina says, thank you so much for, you would say, thank you so much for teaching us. Thank you for teaching. Alex, nice to see you there from China. Are people in China able to watch this with a VPN or something? How are you watching it on YouTube? Or maybe you're just able to do that. Savannah from Brazil. Traiano, nice to see you there. And Frederico from Haiti. Frederico. All right, so let me begin with a quick story, as I often do. This was an interesting thing that happened, but I think it illustrates, it shows, it kind of reveals or describes the pain that a lot of people have, but actually how we can deal with that. So there's a restaurant in Nagasaki that I go to pretty frequently, and at this restaurant they have like a drink corner, so a drink area. You can go get drinks by yourself, just like they have some tea and water and this other stuff that I drink. It's basically buckwheat water. It's called soba-yu in Japanese, but it's basically like water with kind of soba, like buckwheat kind of noodle. I don't even know what you call it in English, but that's basically what it is. So they have this drink counter, and before, at this drink counter, they used to have these, it was like a pretty large mug cup that you could get and pour your drink into. So they have a drink counter with tea and water and stuff, and then they also have this just little bit of cups over there. But not long ago, they replaced these bigger mug cups with a much smaller little kind of teacup thing. And I don't know why they did it. And this is an interesting thing about Japan. I probably would not get a direct answer if I asked them. But I did say, hey, like, can you bring back the larger cup? Because it's like you get this tiny cup and you have to go back and go to you go sit down and go back and get it again. It's really annoying. So I missed these larger cups. Now I guess the reason they stopped using these larger ones and they started using these smaller ones is maybe people were being wasteful. So people would, because these are just free drinks over here. So you can get as much tea or water or whatever as you like. And so you can get tea and you would like fill up this whole thing. Usually I go and I would get 2 of these and then bring them back to the table so I could drink for a while. Then I would go get more if I wanted. So they got rid of this one. To get rid of it, this is some good English right here. To get rid of. So they get rid, or in the past tense, they got. So they got rid of these larger ones, and now they only have these smaller ones. And again, I'm guessing it's because people were just wasting. They would take a lot of water or tea or whatever and not drink it all. So I asked them, I said, hey, can you bring the other ones back? And they were just in a very Japanese way, just like, yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have those anymore. So I'm sure they're probably back there somewhere, but they wouldn't bring them out. Now, near that, there's another table with plates and bowls and other things. So what did I do? I just got a bowl. So here's like a kind of larger bowl, and I'm just using that now. So these bowls, they can't really take them away because people need these for eating or whatever. And it's not like a giant bowl. It actually looks like a large Japanese tea bowl. It's just much bigger than these. You could put maybe 2.5 of these in one of these bowls, but it doesn't look bad. It's not like a giant salad bowl or something like that. So I was able to solve my problem with just replacing like this cup with this one instead. All right. Now, why am I telling this story? As I usually do when I tell these stories, there's a message here for all of my students. And this is that there's a situation here. The situation here is I want to have a larger container for my drink. So I don't have to go back and get this like tiny cup and bring it back, and it's actually hard to carry it because it's so small and you could spill the tea or whatever. So they got rid of this, and so again they got rid of this one and they replaced it with this one. But I just said, okay, I'm going to use this other bowl over here instead, and they can't take that one away from me. Now, I don't think they were doing this just for me. I'm sure lots of other people are doing this. But I'm pretty sure I'm probably the only one who is now using a bowl to get my tea like I usually drink, or my buckwheat water. All right. So again, the interesting thing here is like the cup. It's a tricky story because the connection here to language learning it's a little bit hard to see at first. But you can think about these individual things like words. All right. So imagine like this is one word. Let's just say this one is like big, and this word is large over here. Okay. Now, I'm just using these for words. This is not about sizes of anything. It's just 2 different words that you can use. But the point is, like in this situation, you could use like one of these 2 things, but I don't want to use these. I want to use something else. And because I'm not thinking about words, it's like, okay, they took my word big, and now I have to use something else. So I'm not thinking about the vocabulary. I'm not thinking about, well, I guess I have to drink out of this one. I'm thinking about the situation. Okay? So in this situation, there are actually many things that could solve this problem for me. So the problem is, how do I get a larger container so I don't have to use this smaller one? Okay? So I'm not thinking, like at first I just tried using this. I said, okay, they're giving me that one, but then I saw, oh, well, we have these other bowls over here, so I'll just use one of those instead. And now that's what I do. Okay? So the way my mind thinks, and the reason, like a big reason I'm now able to speak fluent Japanese, is because I'm not really thinking about words. The words are not like the thing I'm studying, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. What I'm really doing is paying attention to or studying very closely situations, okay? So the situation is I need to drink something and I want a larger container, okay? So it's not about having like a particular cup. The problem is I just want to have a larger container. So that is the situation, and this thing solves that situation. Now, what usually happens with language learners or English learners in particular, since we're talking about English learners here, is that people will begin by focusing on words. And so if they can't find a word or they can't remember the word they like, then they get stuck. Okay? So if they try to think of a word in a conversation but they can't remember what it is, it doesn't come to them quickly enough, they forget what they want to say. Okay? But a fluent speaker, because they're thinking about trying to express a situation, they're typically able to think of some other way to speak. All right? So instead of studying words, what I'm recommending here is studying situations. And so how I do this for learning Japanese and how I recommend this in the way I teach in my programs is focusing on a kind of situation. It could be it could be anything really, like praising children as an example. Let's just take that one. So let's say I've got kids and they do a good job. So here's I don't know, maybe one of my daughters. So I have two girls. One of my daughters brings home like a good. So here's like the test, and you got like an A+, very good on that. They actually don't have this grading scale in Japan, but you get the idea. So she's very happy. Look at that, I got a very good score on my test over here. There are many different ways that I could praise my daughter. So to praise her, there are actually many different ways to do this. So I'm not focusing on just a particular word I should use. I'm thinking about what is the general situation. And the way I learn how to do this is by watching lots of other people in that same situation. Okay? So I see people talking about that. You can post something in the chat right now, but when you're thinking about praising someone, different ways you could say this are maybe good job, great work, excellent, well done, you did it. Okay, you get the idea. So when a native speaker, and what I call a native speaker, it's really just someone who learns English as a first language rather than learning it through a different language. So young children, when they're learning, what they're doing is really watching their parents or other people or people on TV shows or whatever, but they're getting all of this input that's helping them understand that, oh, in this situation, there are lots of different ways you could express yourself. There are lots of different ways you could express yourself. Now, I'm going to pause right quick just so I can take a look at chat. Maybe there are some questions there. But the basic idea here is that the people who can speak fluently are thinking and really studying this over here. And so the vocabulary is actually the second thing. It's secondary. It's less important than just really understanding what's happening. Okay? I'll explain why that is in just a moment. But let me go look at chat, see if anybody, looks like we have some questions over here. All right, I'm going to try to go through this quickly so we can keep moving. Restoring all, nice to see you there. Jefferson, Evangelina, Pabina. Okay, I got you guys already. Toyano. Let's see, Mimu from Thailand, from Algeria, Morocco. Bridget, nice to see you there. All right, Alex, yes, use a VPN to learn and to escape. Oh no. Saj says, morning, what do you think about the recent yes, no, yes, it's baffling to me. So baffling is like a good word, baffling. Like to be baffled by someone or by something, like you're really kind of like surprised by it. So it's baffling to me that the yen would not be stronger. Japan is still doing well. I guess maybe the dollar is, it's not really that like the yen is so weak, such as the so much as the dollar is stronger, I guess. I wish I could talk more about it. I don't know the particulars of it, but yeah, certainly prices are more expensive over here. But yeah, it's unfortunate for people in Japan. But I think like people that do like selling things abroad or whatever, they're able to do quite well with the reduced currency value. Romeoville from Illinois. Let's see. From Illinois. Look at that. Johnny Lopez, Drew, and everyone talks effect. Hello, I speak Spanish. I have a question. How do they say in English the beds that are one downstairs and one bed upstairs? It's for a task. Yeah, it's a bunk bed. I think someone answered that already. Order says, hi, what would my level be if I can understand what you're saying? I'll probably talk about this in my next video, just because people continue to ask this question about how do I check my English level. But the reality is there are different communication skills, and I think I haven't talked about this in a while, so it's probably a good thing to review. But there are different communication skills you have, and you can be good in one skill, but not so good in another. So even if you can understand what I'm saying right now, it's even a different thing to understand natives and them speaking maybe different accents, or they're faster or using vocabulary that I'm not using. So in a kind of typical like English teaching lesson, I want to be understandable because my job is to make the language understandable. But there are different levels of that. So the first level is just making sure I'm clear so you can understand what I'm saying. But then we want to take you up to higher levels where you can understand native speakers. And so like in terms of thinking about what your level is, you could be good at like reading, but not good at speaking. Okay, so there are different skills that you have, and your job really is to eliminate the doubt that stops you from speaking. That's really the number one thing that stops people from expressing themselves. So if you can get rid of any doubt you have, then that will help you speak. All right, let's see. Okay, I think answer that one from Wellington from Sao Paulo. It's a good morning from Tokyo. It's a national holiday today. Yeah, it looks like we have a couple of Nihonjin in the audience today, some Japanese people. Ordo says, okay, you're asking me that already. Let's see. Nicholas, good evening, everyone. Okay. Now remember, if I don't answer your question immediately, don't spam the chat. Just ask it one time, and I should be able to go back and check that. Okay, look at that. All right. Let's see. I love the way you explain these situations. Teacher, glad to hear it. Sonia says, hello, I'm Sonia. I'm from Colombia, but I live in New Jersey for many years. And unfortunately, I didn't learn how to speak English. I'm just trying to learn how to speak fluently and found you. Welcome to the party. Well, that's what we help you do. Basically, the idea is that people can know a lot of English, but still struggle to speak because they still have doubts about the language. It could be doubts about vocabulary or grammar or whatever, but as you eliminate those doubts, as you understand the language better, you speak. So most people think you become a fluent speaker by just repeating words or I'm trying to study more, but you actually become better as you feel more confident by understanding the language. So you kind of acquire the language, you develop fluency, and then you speak. Okay, that's the way things really work. And if you look at children and how they learn, that's what they're doing. So they spend a lot more time just listening and watching what other people do. So the exact same thing like this. So my daughters, and I also, just to give my daughters like all these different examples, because they don't maybe have so much experience with English because we live in Japan. So I have to give them this naturally varied review. So sometimes I will say, good job. Sometimes I say, great work, excellent, well done, you did it, other things like that. Okay, we'll come back to this in just a moment, but this is how native speakers are learning the language. And again, I really want to repeat, you're not born a native, you become a native because you learn English as a first language, instead of learning it through translations or the kind of typical grammar study that people do. So my lessons here are helping people do that. So Sonia, that's how you get fluent. All right, greetings from somebody else, John there from Colombia as well. All right, tech and skills from Bangladesh, like your teaching method a lot. Glad to hear it. If you guys enjoy what I do like the video and recommend it to other people so we can help more people. Do I teach Japanese too? No, I don't. I mean, I will use some Japanese sometimes with my kids, but I speak mostly with them in English. All right. Hi, Drew, says Shang. How are you doing? I'm Weber from Taiwan. Okay. I have a question about formality. Could you please explain or please give examples of using language in a formal, informal, and neutral way? That's beyond the scope of this video, but we do have that in Fluent for Life where we're talking about different like levels of politeness, and you will see this depending on the person you're speaking with. Maybe I will cover this in another video, but you can also search my channel, and probably other people have covered this as well. Lots of this stuff has already been covered. Ida says, let's say I have daughters, for example, みたいなことですか? It's more like 例えば, like for example. So if you're saying like, let's just imagine this situation, like let's say I live on the moon. Okay, so right now we are going to imagine that situation. Like let's say I'm praising my kid. What would I do? Okay, so it's another way of saying like if I'm doing this, or let's imagine, and you would say like let's, like shimasho, let's. All right. So I'm even being a bad teacher using some Japanese explaining it, but the point is like let us, like we shall do this thing together. Okay. So let's imagine, let's pretend, let's say. Those are different ways of expressing the same thing. So here again, this is another example of we have a situation. So I want to, we would call this like an imaginary thing, or like a hypothetical. So a hypothetical situation is one, it's not real, it's not actually happening, but we could imagine that. So let's say I'm praising my dog. All right, I don't have a dog, but we can imagine that. We can just imagine that scenario. It's just a hypothetical situation. So it's not really happening, but we can imagine it happening. So let's say we do this. So let's imagine something. All right, that's what we're saying. But notice again, there are different ways of saying that. Let's say, let's imagine, what if? Okay, so what if I'm praising my daughter? Okay, what if? Just imagine that. All right. So I try to give these different ways of expressing this so you feel more comfortable. Oh, okay, there's actually many ways to say this. And again, I just used some incorrect grammar there. Did you hear that? I said there's many examples, but it should be there are. Okay. So even natives, we will use kind of incorrect grammar like that. And if you're listening, if you're paying attention for those situations, you will know when it's okay to use incorrect grammar. All right, okay, I think I got everybody there. All right, how can I sound? You would say, how can I sound like native speakers? You have to learn what they do. You have to learn what they do and learn how they learn. That's how you do it. So that's how anybody, like if you move to the United States, you don't have to do that, but the point is to be surrounded by lots of input and focusing on situations. So one situation we're just talking about here is praising someone. So praising a child, or praising like a teammate on a sports team, or praising someone at work. All of these things are perfectly fine to say in that situation. But this is just one example. But we could have another situation. What if I'm angry at someone? Okay, why did you do that? What's wrong with you? What were you thinking? These are things that you will hear maybe when we're scolding someone, when we're angry at them. Okay, but there are different ways of saying this, and not everyone will do it the same way. But the point is, because kids are thinking about the situation, they're actually learning all of this different vocabulary that could be used for that. Now, maybe people will have like one or two or three phrases that they use most of the time, but interesting thing is they're actually able to understand all of these things. And you see, after we come from the situation to the different vocabulary or the different phrases, and that's where we really start to understand what individual words mean. Okay, so you begin with the situation, then you start to understand words, because the word by itself doesn't mean anything. If I just put the word, let's say, did, on a flashcard or something, it's not really very helpful for me. It's like, okay, what does did mean? If you imagine a child, they don't really understand the grammar, or maybe they're not trying to think logically about that. Or we talk about well. So if I use the word well and I put that on a flashcard by itself, what does that word really mean? Actually, it depends on the situation. Okay? So if we look at a well, like what is a well? If I just have the word well on a flashcard, like an example could be, let me draw, just make sure we fit this over here. So here is like a little water well, you know, with a little bucket on there. So this is a well also, a well. So this is a noun, the well, where we're going to take a bucket and drop it down into some water and pull up some water. We call that a well, okay? So this is why students are typically doing the opposite from what fluent speakers do. Students begin with words, and then they get confused with what those words mean because words don't really mean anything by themselves, okay? So just like the example of the cups at the restaurant, I don't care about the specific cup. I'm trying to solve the situation, trying to solve the problem, and there are many ways I could solve that. And one way is just using a bowl it looks basically like a tea bowl, and drink from that instead. And nobody stops anything. So the staff is still happy because people aren't wasting things, and I'm happy because I can drink without going to refill my little tiny cups all the time. Okay? So the main difference here, like the focus of this video is really helping you understand that the thing to study is the situation. And by study the situation, I mean you need to get lots of examples by seeing like what people do in a particular situation. And the situation can be very simple. It can be praising a child or ordering a drink or how you ask for maybe some help on the phone or something like that. Or it could be maybe a bigger situation like giving a presentation. But typically you have kind of smaller pieces of those things, smaller situations within a larger thing like that. So in a presentation, you might have like, how do you start a presentation? How do you move from one topic to another? These are all things that have general patterns, but there are different ways of expressing these things. So if you want to understand and find the words you need to begin with the situation and then go to the vocabulary, okay? Let me give you another example of this. So instead of thinking about like words like this, just imagine it maybe with sounds. All right. I think someone has asked about grammar. I'll come back to that in a moment. So if you think about, I think there's like five lines and 4 spaces on music staff. I'm not going to draw this very well, but let's say I just have a note like this. So this is one note of music. I don't even remember how to draw the treble clef on there, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So this is some sheet music, and then we have one note. And we're trying to think about, what does this note mean? What does that note mean? I actually don't know what this note is because I know very little about music theory and reading music, but let's imagine the note is like ding, I guess. Just imagine that. All right, let's imagine, let's pretend hypothetically that this note is like ding. Oh, a D. Okay. Well, I even see. Look, even if you tell me it's a D, I don't know if that's what you're referring to. But even if you say, oh, that's a D, that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what a D is. I guess like A, B, C, D, D. I don't know what a D is. Now, if someone played that for me, I could get it. But the important thing is here, one note by itself doesn't really mean anything. So people might say, oh, is that like a happy note or a sad note? I suppose you have like major chords and minor chords, and some notes like maybe sound a little bit maybe happier or brighter or something. But in general, you don't really learn much from one note because it doesn't give you very much information. All right? But you start putting a bunch of notes together and different instruments, and now you actually have something you can understand. Okay? So if you begin with a note, just like if you begin with a word, it's more difficult to understand. All right? I know it seems like it seems like you should just learn this way, like you begin with a word list of a bunch of words, but the opposite is true. You actually should begin with a situation because it's much easier for the brain to understand that. Okay? So if you listen to a song, that's much easier to remember, okay? So even though like the song might be complex, I can remember a long song or a speech or something like that. It's actually many words or many notes. All right, one last example of this, just to make sure this is clear. So instead of doing music, which I don't know much about, I mean, other than just listening to music, if we begin with a sound, and we'll just have, like, let's say we have the letter T, like T. What do I mean by that? T, T. Now, it probably doesn't mean anything. Maybe we add a bit more information, okay, cat, cat. But what do I really mean by cat? Do I mean the animal, or am I talking about like slang for like a person? Like, look at that cat over there. Do I mean a cat like the animal or like a guy? Okay, it could mean either of those. All right, so this is when you start trying to like understand vocabulary in this way, it becomes a lot more difficult because you're trying to think of like only one way to understand something. And this is typically when you have to use translation from your native language. So you begin with a word that you already know in your native language, and then you try to learn that in English, but then the word doesn't come to you in conversations because you didn't really understand it like a native. So what happens when we get vocabulary like this, like we have good job, well done, good work, as soon as we hear like a word like well, we make that same connection. Like if someone says well done, all right, like good job, well done. So they understand that in this situation the words can mean like I'm praising you. You did something well. You did something well. So even if you don't really understand the grammar, you're starting to understand, okay, we put these two words together and it gives us this meaning of like praising someone else. But let's say like I go in school as just another example. So like someone says to me, you write well. You write well. And maybe let's just imagine I don't really understand the language very much. I'm just hearing these examples. Oh, someone says, well done. And then someone says, you write well. But I understand the situation. They're saying my writing is good. Like, oh, that's interesting. So as you get more examples, you start to make the connection like between these words. It's almost like there's a kind of hidden core meaning for both of these. And as you get more examples, you think like, oh, someone like did something a lot, or it was a good thing that they did. And then you start to understand what well means, or at least this usage or this meaning of well, like a native. Okay, so as you get more examples of vocabulary, and we usually get these examples from situations. So if you study the situation first, and again, by study the situation, I mean you take a situation and try to get lots of examples of people talking about that thing. Okay, so rather than beginning with a word like well and trying to learn every use of that thing, you actually begin with something that is a lot more just natural to us, which is what do we say in different situations? So what do I say when I need to make a phone call? How do I begin that phone call? So children, they're watching their parents, and the parent picks up the phone and says, hello. But in Japan, they say moshi moshi. So it depends on the situation. All right. But little kids, they look at their parents and then they start copying that. And so they're playing, I have like a pretend phone here, moshi moshi, hello. So if I'm watching my parents, I'm going to learn in this situation, this is what we say when we answer the phone. But if you ask someone like, what does like hello mean? They might think, oh, well, it's like a greeting, I guess. And you would think about when you would say that thing. Okay. So this is why we don't begin with the vocabulary, we actually begin with situations. It's a lot easier to learn that way. So I made a video that just gives an example of this. I have many of these, but this specific video about how to make espresso. If you have not seen that on my channel, you should go watch that. But that is the situation of making an espresso, but having different people do it. So you will hear different ways of making that thing. some of the vocabulary is the same, but some of the vocabulary is different, just like in the real world. All right. So when you focus on a situation, it's something at first, maybe you don't quite understand it, just like the first time you hear a word, maybe you don't quite understand it. But as you get more examples, oh, look at that. We did well done. Maybe we go to a steak restaurant and someone orders like, let me get my steak well done. And now this is like a slightly different meaning of it, but you can see a connection there. There is a connection here with the kind of core meaning of doing something a lot or really doing it. Okay? So instead of having a raw steak that's not very cooked, we have a well done steak that's really cooked well. Okay? Everybody getting it? Hopefully this is starting to make more sense. So when you just learn a word, if I put a word like well on a flashcard and I try to repeat that word again and again, it's not going to help me use it more fluently because I'm not really connecting that with a situation. And we speak in situations. Okay? So when something happens, what do we say? So we begin with the situation, we study the situation, and this is how I get fluent in Japanese as well. So the same thing I'm teaching you, it's the same thing I do. So I focus on something I will go to a park with my kids, and maybe other people will be there, and I will just listen. What are other people saying? Like if you get mad at your kids, what do you say? And there are different ways of doing this. Or if you're stretching, what do you say? Or if you're playing a game, what do you say? All right, so these are all different situations, and the vocabulary comes from that because you're able to understand it the same way a native would. And a native just means that they're understanding from the situation, not through another language. Okay? All right, let me go back and check chat. Hopefully, let me know if this idea makes sense. Again, the basic thing I want you to understand is if you struggle to remember words when you speak, it's probably because you're trying to remember vocabulary the traditional way. All right, so either you're translating or you get a definition and you're looking at vocabulary, but you're not, like those words aren't very memorable. You don't recall them easily in conversations. So maybe your mind goes blank. You can't remember what to say. But if you're focusing on situations and you get lots of examples of these things, you really start to understand and you really feel confident about different ways that you can express yourself. And even if you forget one of those things, you can easily switch to something else. Okay? So just like we're talking about praising children, good job, nice work, fantastic, excellent, amazing, well done. There's so many different ways we could do that. Just like we could express really any situation in many different ways. All right, so if you have any questions about this idea, let me know. I want to go back and check chat, but let's see here if I have anything that I missed. All right, okay, I answered that one. Jane from Hong Kong, you got me. My written English is okay, but I don't speak much. Yes, and this is the typical thing. Probably you learned maybe through Chinese or something else, but if whatever you're learning with your native language, if you're learning English as a second language, it will be more difficult for you to speak because you're really trying to think from vocabulary instead of understanding a situation and thinking, what did natives say? What do people normally say in this situation? And that's how you should think about vocabulary. So if you watch my videos, or really anybody's videos, or even just any people walking around, but just to give the example from my lessons, you can see how, like, if I'm thinking, what do I say? So if I pause or I give an example or something, that's how you should be watching these lessons. So the lesson is not about, even one idea or two or three vocabulary words. You're paying attention, and this is the reason I do these videos live rather than as a recording. Because if I'm recording, maybe I slow down my speech or I say something different. I want to give you examples of what fluent speech looks like so that you can copy that thing. All right, but you won't get it only from me. You will also, if you watch more people. That's exactly why we structure Fluent for Life that way. So you can get lots of examples of different people saying things. All right, let's see. Where did I stop off? Okay, tech skills, make video about uses am to, is to, and so on. have to. Well, just search our channel for that. We've covered lots of those things already. Hi, from Indonesia, I see there. Nicholas, what would you recommend me to understand fast native speakers? So if you want to apply this to understanding more difficult native speakers, you need to focus on those particular speakers. So I would get easier examples of the language, so a slower speaker like myself, and then listen to someone else speaking about that same thing, but faster. Okay, and then get a range of that. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So the point of the program is to give you exposure to lots of different kinds of speakers. So you will understand the language better if you learn it clearly first. Then you will be more prepared when you hear faster, blended versions of that same speech. So an example I give in the program for people, and you can do this even just with YouTube, is listen to the same speech given by different people, or listen to the same song sung by different people. And so as you focus, like the situation is that song, and you will hear different people singing it, and I'm now getting my ears more used to understanding that kind of speech. Okay, that's how you do that. So it's this same idea gets applied across everything for understanding grammar or pronunciation or improving your listening. The whole idea is to eliminate doubt, and you eliminate doubt by getting more examples. Okay, so we don't take a word like well and repeat that again and again. What we do is get lots of examples of how we use well. So we understand the situation, we feel confident that we understand, then we can speak. All right, so most people, they don't speak because they don't feel confident, and they don't feel confident because they don't really know what they're learning. They don't really understand it very well. All right, so this is why you can understand something enough to maybe you can follow what I'm saying, but if you still have doubts, that's what will stop you from speaking. Let's see, Wellington, could you explain the difference between ended in and ended up? Well, to end in, just like you could, and this is another one of those things when people ask me questions about like particular vocabulary, it's important to understand when you're using that. All right. So rather than just give an explanation of what something means, because it really means something in a situation. So if we talk about like I'm driving a car and we ended in Boston. Okay, so we're driving, we start here and we end in this place over here. Okay, so a very basic usage of it. But when natives are using to end up doing something, it's like an accidental thing. So this is again why it's important to pay attention to situations. So here, if I'm describing this, so the native way, the way I would explain this to my daughters is just them getting examples of me talking about it. So let's say I'm in a car. Here's my car over here. And I'm driving this way. So I started here. I am at A and I'm going to B. So I'm driving. Very simply, I ended to end in, or you can say end at B. Okay? So both of those are fine. So we're going from here to this place over here. So I'm ending the trip over here. All right, so very simple. Now, end up in typically means I'm driving and now I end up here. Okay, so as I'm explaining this by showing you a situation, it becomes a lot easier to understand the situation. So we don't just take words by themselves. Okay, here's a phrase end in, and here's another one over here. We got end up. See, what I'm explaining in this video is that we don't start with the vocabulary. I know sometimes you have to do that, and if you're asking questions about the vocabulary, the best thing to do is get lots of examples of it, okay? So rather than try to get a definition or a translation of something, look at the difference in the situation. Well, we ended in Boston. Oh, we ended up in Chicago. All right? It becomes a bit more clear now, doesn't it? All right. So as you feel more confident, like we ended up here. So we were going this way, but I don't know how, like a tornado picked us up and put us in a different place. We ended up in a different location. All right. And so as you understand the situation, and a similar situation would be if I'm if I'm like having a conversation about something, maybe I end up talking about something else. All right. So we have a plan. We're going to start talking about this. We talk about, we could keep talking and then end talking about this. All right. Yes. So Mike is giving like the kind of definition of it. But the point is I'm trying to get you to see there's like the core meaning is it's almost hidden. It's there. And if I just tell you what the meaning is, it's a little less powerful for you. So if you say, oh, what does end up mean? I just say, oh, it means this. But really, it could depend on the situation for lots of vocabulary. But in this case, you feel much more confident because of the way I teach it, all right? So I'm not giving you the answer. I'm trying to help you understand the situation. And then by comparing these two, it becomes easier to understand, all right? So I'm driving or I'm talking about something, but now the conversation changed and we start talking about something else and we ended up talking about some different topic. Okay, so the same idea. So if you have vocabulary and you're trying to compare different things you don't understand, I would go to ChatGPT or Google or something. Probably Google would be even better, but just type in like a sentence using that you can think of and look at the different examples that you get. All right. And so when you see people talking about this and you say, oh, that's interesting. The situation is like people just talk about going somewhere or that's the result of something. But when people end up doing something that's interesting, it's like a surprising thing or an unexpected thing, somewhere they didn't intend. Okay. Does that make sense? So this is why I keep reminding you that the thing that natives are doing, and again, I keep repeating this, what it means to be a native just means you're learning English as a first language. So the only thing you can do as a first language is connect vocabulary with situations. Okay? So what's happening or when something happens, what do you say? That's it. So the other way to learn a language is what do you say in this language and what do you say in this language? That's where you translate and you start getting stuck because you're trying to connect vocabulary in one language with vocabulary in another. And like it might not work out that way. Like as an example, I could do like the Japanese word for free. Like, what do you mean by free? Do you mean not having a price or do you mean like freedom where you can go do things that you like? Okay, so it depends on the particular meaning of the word. And that's why it's so important. You really, if you pay attention, if you watch what kids are doing as they're learning, they're really paying attention to watch what other people say in different situations. So when people see this, what do? Pretty simple, okay? So it becomes much easier, and I know it seems like more work or like you're not getting directly to the vocabulary, but most people, when they try to do the direct vocabulary way, they spend years studying and they still can't speak fluently. But little children, very quickly, because they're focusing on situations and they get so many examples that help them understand different ways to speak. So the first benefit is they understand different ways to speak. The second benefit is they learn the meanings of these words automatically. Okay? So just by comparing all of these different words, it's like a big puzzle. Look at that. We got well here, well here, well here. It's like, oh, I did something well. So now I could apply that myself. I understand the word. I feel more confident. So like I can do something well, like I can swim well or I can play the guitar very well. And that's how they understand the basic meaning of vocabulary, so they use it fluently. All right, let me hit up some more questions over here. So that was kind of a long response to that, but let's see. Where did I go? Okay, here we go. Hussein says, I'm subscribed in your program, Frederick, and I want to know, is the subscribe to get expired by time? What do you mean? If you're talking about like, so the app Frederick, this is, for people who don't know, this is, you can find it at the link or via the link in the description below this video, and it will teach you pronunciation, listening, help you understand vocabulary in this same kind of way. But we have, let's see, the expire date or expire time. Well, we have you can get a discount on the app if when you install it. If you upgrade to get the whole app, then it's much cheaper than waiting, if that's what you mean. But that expires in about 30 minutes. So you can get into the app, you can try it out. If you like it, then upgrade to get the whole thing. It's over 2,000 words and sentences. All right, hello from Brazil. Men Wang says, I always cannot speak more high-level words to express myself even though I can recognize them. Yes. So hopefully this explains why you can understand vocabulary but not use it fluently. Does everybody understand why that is? I see people keep making this video on YouTube about why you can understand but not speak. But my learners, the people who are watching my videos, I repeat this over and over again. Again, the reason... And it's such an important, big idea. I'll repeat it here again. Remember that people think that you become fluent by learning vocabulary and then repeating it again and again. But what actually happens is you're really understanding vocabulary better, and I'm showing you how to do that. All right. So if you think about, here's just a very simple chart of how much you understand. Let's say this is 100% understanding of some vocabulary, and this is 0% understanding. Typically, you can learn something, you can memorize some words, and you can learn this way, and it will help you maybe get to this point here. So you understand it well enough to recognize things. You can hear people, you can watch some movies, and maybe even understand some faster native speakers. But all of this area over here, it's doubts that you have about that vocabulary because you don't really understand it 100%. You don't understand it well enough. There's that word well again, well. So well enough. So not just well, I mean well enough to use it. Well enough to use that vocabulary. Okay? So this is understanding. We'll just put a U over here. And we'll put a big D for doubt. And it could be doubt about anything. You might be worried about how to say the word or what the pronunciation is, or are you using it correctly? Is your accent funny or something? All of these different doubts and worries will stop you from speaking, but you can still understand. All right? So this whole lesson today, talking about understanding different situations and focusing on that, this will clear the doubt. So you don't typically get rid of this doubt by repeating things again and again, because repeating things doesn't help you learn more. It doesn't help you understand better. I could repeat the word well 100 times, or I could write it 100 times, or listen to someone else say it to me 100 times, but I'm not going to use it more confidently because I don't understand it better. All right? But what will help me understand it better so I use it fluently is getting lots of examples, understanding how it works in situations. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So this is why you can understand, but not understand well enough to speak. It's doubt that stops you. It's doubt that gives you the worries or the nervousness about fears or whatever, that you'll make a mistake. So clear the doubt. Just get rid of the doubt by understanding the language better. And the great news is you can do that all by yourself. You don't need to have a practice partner to do this. You don't even need to say anything to other people or to yourself. You just need to get a lot more examples that really help you understand that language well. Okay? Just think about how you do this in your native language. You watch TV shows, you listen to books or whatever, read things. All of that is just something you're doing by yourself without speaking. But you're still learning. You're still improving. You're still eliminating doubt. And once you have no more doubt, then you speak. Do I understand British people? Sure. There might be a word or two that maybe I don't understand, but in general, I do. All right. Let's see. Okay, I think I got that one. All right, Pato says, hi, teacher. I understand the idea of learning English in English, but I have kids, and at some point I need my kids to understand English words or expressions both in English and Spanish. Well, you can teach them both. I teach my kids Japanese and English. It's not like one or the other, but typically I'm teaching them English in English. and I'm teaching them Spanish, or not Spanish, Japanese, in Japanese. So you can do both. All right, Dan says, greetings from Brazil. Grammar is important, but it's not that important, says Far. Well, like, this is grammar. You understand the grammar from the situation. So the same way that you learn vocabulary, that's also how you learn grammar. Okay? The point is, you don't take a grammar point and just say like, okay, today we're going to study the past perfect. You don't think about it like that way, because a native doesn't think about it like that way. They don't think about it like that either. If you ask a native speaker, what is the present perfect or the past perfect, they won't be able to tell you. Most people would not know how to like explain what that is. But they can use it, okay? And they use it because they understand the situation. And I did a video recently, like specifically about this grammar point. That's why I'm thinking of it. But when you understand it like a native, you think, oh, now I understand why people say it that way. And so you understand, again, you improve your level of understanding, and that's what allows you to speak. If you don't feel confident, you won't speak. That's it. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how old you are, how many like people you try to meet with or whatever, some speaking practice partners, or how much time you study. If you don't feel confident, you won't speak fluently. It just means you don't understand the language. But the good news is it's very easy to do this because you can do it by yourself. Okay, so you can get someone like me to help you, like I do in these videos or we do in our programs, or you just get examples from anywhere. That's the same way I learn Japanese. So I don't have anyone to teach me Japanese. I don't have a teacher, even my own wife. I was complaining to my wife yesterday. I said, people think I can speak Japanese well because I'm married to a Japanese woman. And I always explain to them, like, she doesn't teach me anything. She doesn't have any time. But the way I kind of get like a secret lesson from my wife is just listening to her talk about things. So if she's talking with somebody else, I just listen to that. So I'm paying attention to the situation. When she's talking about this, what does she say? And so that's how I get these good examples. And I'm not only listening to her, I'm listening to various people. And so the point is I eliminate the doubt, and that's what enables me to speak. All right. Let's see. So Jane says, I like your idea of finding situation to express things in English. Yes. So again, the point is you begin with the situation, and it's much easier to focus on that. So in this situation, what do people say? That's really the question. So we don't begin with the vocabulary, because the vocabulary can mean different things in different situations. I know this is a complicated topic, but this is why most people learn languages through translation, because they're trying to take a word in their native language and then translate it into English, but it could have a different meaning. And so it's much better to understand those things in English. That's what allows you to speak fluently. Let's see, Fabricio from Brazil. Mike is there again. And Reno, nice to see you there. So I moved to Australia lately. You could say I moved recently. I can understand UK and US English, but I found Australian accent is trickier. I can't fully, so I tried to watch some local TV shows and see if it'll help. Yes, so that will help. Again, if you are around some people, if I go into a different part of the United States that has a really different accent from mine, maybe it will be hard for me to understand, but I would figure that out. It's interesting, like if you look at parents with very young children, like 1 year old, 2 years old, and the kids can't really speak very well, but the parent understands what the child is saying. So as an example, my younger sister has two little girls. They're, I think, 2 or 3 years old now. But when they were a little bit younger, like 1 or 2, and they just started speaking, they would say something and I didn't understand what they were saying, but my sister did. So she's used to the way they speak. She understands that because she's heard them speak, and they spend a lot of time together. So that's the secret, really. It's just I don't understand them very well because they have their own kind of code or language that they're able to use. But as they become better speakers, then they will understand and be able to communicate better with a wider number of people. So if you can understand me, but you would like to understand some different kind of people, then spend more time with that. Again, this is why we put that into Fluent for Life. So I'm not the only person teaching in Fluent for Life. You got many different people from all over the place that give you examples of English. So Australian speakers, Canadians, even people from different countries that are speaking English. All right, Red Goat says, my biggest problem was whenever I spoke to a native, so whenever I speak to a native, they also think I'm a native. And just thinking about it puts a big load on my mind. Do you think I should put in the front, I'm not native? My biggest problem is whenever I spoke to a native, they also think I'm a native. That sounds unlikely, just from your writing here. I'd be surprised if people were listening to you speak and they would think, oh, you're a native. But like, if you really speak very well, then I don't see what the problem is. Yeah, you're nervous about that, it doesn't sound like that's like a good problem, I guess. All right, Mike says, that reminds me, you'd say that reminds me of Don Hector, the character of Breaking Bad. Don Hector. All right, Nudo Cortez, I don't know what that means. Anders, hi, Drew. Does the phrase, I hate to cook, but I love cooking, make sense to show contrast in the use of the verb's meaning? Well, I mean, if you're talking about, it's a confusing example if you're talking about understanding what that means, but I would take two different examples probably and use that. But yes, you logically, it might sound funny, but grammatically it's correct. So you could say, I hate cooking, but I hate cooking, but I love, I don't know, eating or something like that. Or I hate to cook, but I love cooking. But you could express that in different ways. So you could say, I hate to do something, but I love to do this other thing over here. So some of those, we have a whole lesson set about this in Fluent for Life, so I'm not going to cover it now. But in general, you will learn the patterns as you get more examples. So rather than taking one example, get 10 or 20 or 100, and you will feel a lot more confident about it. Let's see. Diamond says, hi, Di from Japan, Tokyo. I can't speak English very much, but I always listen to English One Channel. Well, English Any One Channel. Well, welcome. I guess everybody is off work today, so they can watch my video. I am working over here. You guys can enjoy your day. Keiko, nice to see you there. Would it be okay to say well done to your teacher or like someone older than you? Yes, you could say that. Like you did a good job. I suppose a even more polite way if you're worried about in Japan, it's a bit more strict about that. You know that already, but if you have an English teacher in Japan, you say, oh, that was a good explanation, well done, or something. You could say that. That wouldn't be bad or offensive. Dale says, have you done some class about preposition at the end of a phrase? I have a difficulty in this. We talk about this in Fluent for Life, and I've given lots of examples with prepositions on the channel. If you just search the word preposition on our channel, you will find it. Randall says, very much to explain that you don't speak English well, I bet it's incorrect. Very much to explain that you don't speak English well, I bet it's correct. Very much on that. Yeah, it's incorrect to say very much to explain. I don't understand what you're trying to say. Excuse me, rephrase that and let me know if you have a specific question about a word use. Alejandro says, greetings from Mexico. Adrian, I remember when I talked with customers over the phone, I used to say even though. I didn't know why, but it's like it was an unnecessary filter. It came out of my mouth automatically. Well, there's nothing, even though is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Even though, I guess it depends on when you're using it, but that's correct English. Thank you. Alex says, I got it. Situation, yes. So think about how you're learning whatever your language is. If it's, I don't know, I'm trying to think. I always use a couple different languages like Spanish or Portuguese or Thai, and I always say Swahili because I remember when I came to Japan and I was teaching in a classroom, there was a lesson in the English textbook about kids learning a different language. And I thought, what are they doing here? They're actually putting 3 different languages in the same textbook for beginning learners. I just thought that was crazy, but I remember it, and all the kids are saying jambo, which is hello in Swahili. It's an English class and they're learning to say hello in Swahili. And I thought that was kind of a waste of time, but Anyway, let's see. I downloaded Frederick, which is an excellent app for people who want to be more articulate. Would it be possible to have a function for users to type some words in the app and listen to it directly? We'll probably put, again, thank you, first of all, for getting the app. Hopefully you upgraded to the whole thing, so you have the whole app, Solar. But I recommend, we don't have like a search feature yet. That's something we'd like to put in the app. But if you know how to spell the word, if you've gone through the app and you know how to spell it, you should be able to go to that particular section. So as an example, like let's say if you want to review words with last letter E, like a magic E or silent E, this would be level 8. So you would go there and that's how you would find the vocabulary. So you have to think about it a little bit. We'll probably put a search feature in there at some point. But yes, I'm glad you enjoy the app. If you know other people who would like it, please recommend it. All right, Biker says, in the end of the day, food must be delicious. Here we would say at the end of the day. Because we're talking about like it's kind of like a general time period. So, and this is a tricky thing about learning prepositions like that, because again, the meaning or use of a word changes depending on the situation. So people do say in the end, like what happens like in the end of the story or at the end, you could say both of those things. But typically, like the phrase at the end of the day, that specific phrase, that situation talking about the end of the day, we typically use at for that. And if you're ever curious, if you do a Google search, you could type in the end of the day and see how many search results you get. And then at the end of the day and see how many search results you get. And you should get a lot more for at the end of the day. I think that's a song from Les Mis. Like at the end of the day, I don't remember the song, but that's how it goes. For my French listeners out there. All right, LF, hi Drew, can you do the same with help and help out? Well, in this case, it's just making it sound more conversational. So how can I help? How can I help out? There's no difference in this if you're just offering help to someone. So sometimes you will have a phrasal verb example like that where the only point is just to make it sound a bit softer, smoother, a little bit, just more conversational, basically. Let's see. I'm trying to go quickly here. You guys are stacking these up on me. All right. Ilda says, howdy. Drew, glad to hear you this morning. All right. Becca says, hi, Drew. You're doing great. Personally, I wish you to create more lessons with a lot of phrasal verbs in them, as it's still sometimes a pain in the little blue monster. Well, we have, are you in? I don't know if you're in either Fluent for Life or Visual Guide to Phrasal Verbs, but we teach hundreds of them. Right there. But we do have lots of videos on the channel as well about phrasal verbs, and we will cover them occasionally in these live videos as well. Let's see. Hey guys, 156 watching, just 67 likes. Is that well enough? Here you would say, is that good enough? All right. So if we're talking about doing something, like are we doing a well enough job? So are we doing something? But is it good enough? Well, I would say no. We need to do better. You guys do better. All right. Well done, Drew. Very good. You guys with the using the vocabulary over there. Solana says, so eliminating doubt is the ideal way to learn a language in life, not only languages. Yes. I mean, if you're talking about like human psychology, so I spend a lot of time learning this because a lot of communication is psychology, and not only for how we speak with people, but how we feel about the words that we use. And so people generally are nervous about things, and we like certainty. So if we're going to buy something, we want to know for sure that it will work, or that we won't have a problem or something like that, or in life or whatever, because people don't really like if you look at the world in general, it's mostly because people are nervous about something going wrong. That's why people do the things that they do. So it can be like the thing for all kinds of things in life about eliminating doubt. But I find this is the easiest way to explain it to people. So I tell people that you should just learn English as a first language or learn English like a native speaker, but they don't believe that's possible. And I just say, well, forget about that. Just eliminate the doubt and I'll do it for you. So like you don't have to learn anything. I will make the language understandable. That will destroy your doubt. You will feel more confident, so you will speak. So I'll just do it for you, if that makes sense. But yes, the idea is because people don't like uncertainty, and it's really difficult to communicate when you have uncertainty. All right. Kiat says, to all, as he mentioned that even him sometimes he did not some words from English people, so let's not worry if we don't understand when they speak English, right? Well, like when I don't understand a British person, it might be just one word, but typically I'm able to understand the situation they're talking about, and then I learn that vocabulary. So I might hear some like if I go to like I don't know, I lived in London for a few months back when I was in college. And maybe someone would say like, oh, like top of the morning to you, or it's like kind of the kind of British English you would hear on like a cartoon or a TV show or something. So I don't say top of the morning in English like in America, but in Britain people might use that. And even if I don't know that English, I understand the situation they're using it in. So you meet someone, it's a greeting in the morning. Oh, top of the morning, like beginning of the morning, good morning, you know. So you understand the vocabulary from the situation. But it's a very rare thing that I could listen to a British person and not understand anything they're talking about. So that's a very different thing. All right, Hansda says, good morning. Or no, Pawan is your name, let's see. It's like theory versus practical. Yes, I think if you're talking about how people learn languages, then yes. So most people are kind of thinking about it from a theoretical, we should understand the vocabulary logically and then we'll get fluent. But it doesn't work like that. And that's not how you get fluent in your native language either. Vince says, hi Drew, can I learn grammar from a story? Yes, often, like if you listen to all of the stuff that I'm teaching here, I'm using lots of grammar. Grammar is just the rules of the language. It's how we structure sentences so we can communicate things accurately. But I'm not explicitly teaching any grammar rules. But if you pay attention, you're connecting the situation to the grammar. All right, just like you connect the situation to the vocabulary, and pronunciation is connected to that. Mike says, is there a different mindset between Japanese and Americans? Yeah, I would say for a lot of things. So you have to be like think a little bit differently to enjoy living over here. It can be a little bit tricky for some people. Should I say at home or in the home? You can actually use both of those. So at home is just kind of the general meaning of being like in a house. But you can also say I'm in my house right now. I'm in my home. But we can also use in home where we're talking about physically being inside something. But to feel at home somewhere, like I feel at home when I teach. So it's very like easy and relaxing and natural for me. So I'm at home doing it. So remember, if we just focus on vocabulary, we always bring it back to situations. Okay, so if we say, can we say this or that thing? It's like, well, it depends on the situation. And so that's why I'm trying to give lots of examples so you understand, like we can do this, but it's much easier if you think about these in the situations they're found in. All right. Das is, I can't answer that one. Or Mike, I'm the 51. Do you mean you are 51 or are you talking about your age or something? Biker says, let's talk about sushi. Wellington, my brother-in-law is British and he ever laugh on my... Oh, you mean he always laughs at your American accent? Is that what you mean? He always laughs? So here you would say he always laughs, if that's what you mean, or unless that's a typo and you mean he never laughs. That's interesting, though. Do you celebrate Workers' Day in Japan? Well, I'm celebrating Workers' Day by working. There you go. That's how I celebrate. Becca says, Drew, in your lessons, you often refer to the way kids learn the vocabulary. They stay in the silent mode for quite a bit and only then start to speak their first words as it takes more brain power. Yes, like little kids have the same worries about making mistakes, especially as they get older, this problem becomes worse. And this is why, like very little kids, they just like they walk around just saying things. But as they get older, you get like a high school kid or something, or an adult, and then now the adult doesn't want to say anything unless they're sure it will be correct. All right. But it's much easier to solve that problem if you just get more examples. But that's the idea. Keiko says, thank you with a smiley face. Glad to hear. All right. Pablo says, hi again, Drew. I meant before that even though I teach my kids English in English and Spanish, sometimes I translate to them and explain what they are learning in both language. Is that good? Well, if you're just being simple and maybe you have to translate something quickly, but generally it's better to just give more examples and help people really understand something. Because if you have to translate, then it means you don't really understand or they don't really understand something. So just come at it from a different angle and try to explain something better. All right. I drink my giant bottle of my mint water. Cool and refreshing. Very good. Okay, let's continue. How long have we been going? 75 minutes. All right, Solana says, what if parents' English is not great? Does it affect the child's fluency? In that case, I would get more examples of native speakers. So have your kids watch, videos or something like that they're learning with native speakers. It's the same way native children learn the language. So Mike says, Don Hector speaks with a bell once for you. Oh, that guy. Okay. Yes, he can't talk, right? I remember that guy. He was like, I remember that. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen Breaking Bad. All right, well done. Got it, says Keiko. Ilda says, a new term, pedestrian antenna. One Australian radio amateur walks with fishing pod converted to antenna to make communication with ham radio. Pedestrian. Huh. So someone walking has a radio antenna. Huh. Makes us hello from Brazil. C as what is the difference between cut in and cut off in vehicle context? All right, so that's a better question. Notice that, everybody. That's a good question where in this context or in this situation, in this context, in this situation, what's the difference? All right. Let's see. I'll use some markers for this. All right. Let's see if I can draw a street over here. So here are our lines. So if we imagine we have two cars here. So if two cars are driving and the blue car wants to get in the red car's lane, if they wow, oh my goodness, this is like to cut someone off like that. So you're stopping them from doing something, to cut someone off, and it just means it's kind of like you're cutting off their momentum or their ability to move. So you just move into their lane. So you can also cut into someone's lane. It just means very quickly moving into somebody's lane. Typically, when we move, the safe thing is you want to be ahead of them and you put your blinker on and then, okay, now I'm going to smoothly, nicely move into the lane with a lot of space over here. But if I do this, well, I'm cutting them off, okay, to cut them off. So you can cut in the same way. Cut in is typically used more if we have a line of people. Was that the example? Let me make sure I'm even answering the right question over here. Yeah, cut in. So cutting in, you can use this in a car example, but it's more if there's a line of something. So if we have a line of people waiting for, I don't know, a movie or whatever, and I walk in, it's well, I don't want to wait, so let me just cut in right here. I'm going to cut into the line. All right, so now I wait here, then the people back here will not be so happy about that. All right, so I'm cutting in. So people say don't cut. It's no cutting, no cutting. No cutting or no cutting in. No cutting in. So it would be the same idea with cars. So if you have a bunch of cars and then someone is driving maybe on the side of the street, we call that the shoulder of the street. So they drive up here and then cut in. That's the same idea. Okay, so cutting something off is where you're stopping someone else from moving because you're kind of getting in their way very quickly to cut someone off. But cutting in is when you have maybe a couple of things and you're getting ahead of someone else. You're cutting in line. All right. But notice how I'm teaching this with situations. Okay. So hoping you understand that by following this idea and applying it in your own learning. Let's see. Okay, I think I got that one there. Yes, reminds me. All right, and just in case, again, from Thailand, I see there. Anna from Brazil, Elif. I can understand Americans perfectly, but when I went to Ireland, I could barely understand. So I believe we can't really understand everyone. It's just not realistic. Well, but that's for anybody. If you think about your own country or your own family, you might have people that you can't understand very well. Like think about some grandparent or whatever, like Don Hector that just has a bell. Like that's how he speaks. Like I don't speak bell. I don't understand what he's saying to me. So in everybody's case like that, it's just pay attention to the people you speak with mostly. And that's how you would be able to communicate. So you might not understand everyone, but you're probably, if you're not spending much time with them, if I go to Ireland or Scotland for a weekend, there will be some people I don't understand. It happens. But in general, I would probably be able to communicate with them, or they might even change the way they speak to make sure they're understandable. Let's see. So this is, my husband speaks like a native. He always tells me I should think in English. I can't get it until I found your channel. He said you're the first one he knows who can explain the method he adopted crystal clear. Yeah. So again, if you understand it like a native, that is teaching you how to think in English, because you're not translating anymore. If you don't translate, you don't think in your native language. Bridge again, Drew, so you're saying the situation is whatever is happening at that moment in time. Yes. So it's just like if I'm holding something in my hand, like this is a situation. It's the context, whatever is happening. The point is you begin with this, and then we learn, oh, this thing is a marker. Then I learn, oh, this other thing, like it's a similar kind of thing, like this is also a marker. And maybe I have a slightly different variety or a different color. This is also a marker too. So the context is what you're looking at here. The context could also be an idea if I'm thinking about something or something happening. It doesn't matter. But the point is, the situation typically has like one meaning to it. So like it is what it is. It's just a marker, okay? So we use the sound, the word, to describe this situation. So this thing, this situation, this context is marker. That's what this is. Or this context is a shirt or eye or whatever, some hair. All right. So as you don't begin with a word and then try to connect that with the thing. You begin with the thing and connect the word to that. And it's much easier to do that as you get lots of examples. So a very simple exercise you could do, anyone out here watching this, you could look at somebody's face. And a good way to, and I'll probably talk about this in the next video about like how to judge your level or to know your fluency level, because somebody asked me about this like a little bit ago in this video. And this is how long could you continue talking about something? So if you look at my face or you look at something else, how many different things could you say? So that would tell you how fluent you are. If you just say, oh, this is Drew, he has 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth, and I can't really say more than that. If that's it, then you're not that fluent. Even if you know the vocabulary, then you're not actually that fluent. All right. But if you can talk, if I could talk for an hour just about how someone's face looks, and I could talk about, wow, look at that scar on their face. That was from when they had a fight with an eagle and like, there were some other things happening, and I could explain that. I could continue talking about something like that for a long time. So your ability to speak fluently, it shows how well you can communicate about situations. So you can go into more detail about things, or you can explain them in different ways. If you forget one word, you can use a different one. Those are all skills that you develop as you focus on this idea. So rather than thinking about just words by themselves, because they don't really mean anything, and this just means that words change. The meanings of words change in different situations. So if you focus on situations, the situation is like the anchor. You say, oh, okay, someone is praising a child. I understand what's happening here. But here are all the different ways that we might approach that. How might we say that? Okay, so that's how you can learn to do this without having a speaking practice partner. Isn't that cool? So I don't need to have a speaking practice partner, but I do need someone to give me examples of that. Either I'm going to do this like with our help, in Fluent for Life, or you will be maybe watching videos or reading articles or something. But if you take something you care about, whatever you're interested in, get a bunch of examples of that thing. And it will help you understand it like a native, I promise you. So if you do it in English, you will feel a lot more confident. You will learn pronunciation. You will learn grammar. All that will come naturally. Okay? We just make it very easy because it's all organized already in Fluent for Life. All right. I think we're getting to the end of the comments here. Bridget says, oh, okay, we answered that one. Keiko says, all right, how do you, is that a typo here? How do you say, 今日はこれで失礼します. Like if you're going home, like if you're like, I can say I have to go, thank you very much in advance. Well, you don't have to say all that. So when we say like thank you, oh wait, are you asking? I can't tell where the quote mark is because you is confusing for me because I don't know if you're saying I have to go, thank you very much in advance, or if you just say I have to go, but that's the quote. But I'll imagine, I'll imagine. Yeah, like in Japanese, it's like, well, okay, bye-bye. But in English, yeah, you could just say, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. We don't really have the like sorry for going first kind of culture like that. We just say like I have to go, or we can leave it here and we will come back tomorrow, or I'll see you tomorrow, or something like that. But if you want to be more polite about it, I guess you could say sorry for going first if you wanted to say that. But yes, in Japan. Like it's I hate to laugh about that, but it's just a funny thing I remember. Like there's a movie called Saw. Maybe some of you know this movie. I think there have been a few of these Saw movies. There's like 5 of them. Saw. I don't know how many there are. But in the English version, the killer guy, the bad guy, he says, "I want to play a game. I want to play a game." So he's telling the poor victim, like the girl or the boy or whatever, like we're going to do this now. I just decided I'm going to do this. But I'm joking with my friends about that, and I say the Japanese version of that is like, I'm really sorry. I know you're busy right now, but like we should play a game together. So that's more how people are communicating in that way, and so we kind of joke about that. Anyway, if you've seen that movie. Let's see. I'm chuffed a bit happy when you're hurting your feet because of your shoes are too tight. When you say it's chuffed, how this word can be related to this situation. I'm not familiar with that. Is that British English, to be chuffed about something? Or do you mean chafed? Because that like chafed wouldn't mean happy, and it doesn't mean chuffed in American English that I know of. I've never heard anyone say I'm chuffed to be happy. So I don't know. Maybe either that's a typo or maybe British English or something else. But when you talk about chafing is typically there's like rubbing or something like that. So maybe your shoes are too loose and they're rubbing on your feet, if that's what you mean. But that's not related to happy in this example. Remember, again, that words can have different meanings in different situations. So that would explain that. Bahram says, hello, English anyone? And Christoph says, greetings from Chile. Juanita from Mexico City. Look at that. We got people. And Pablo. Oh, my goodness. I don't know what happened to Pablo with that smiley face over there. Movda says, thank you. I'm from Mauritania. I learned a lot with you. Glad to hear it. Teacher, is there a Children's Day in Japan? There's a Children's Day in Korea. Yes, it's called Kodomo no Hi. And I think was that May 5th, I think? I don't remember. Someone who's Japanese answer that. Right now we are in the middle of Golden Week. I think Kodomo no Hi is, so that's Child's Day. That's on the 5th, I guess, which is, what day is it today? So maybe on Sunday, I guess. So this year, Golden Week, this is where there are a few holidays at the same time, but unfortunately for many people, the holidays are on the weekend already. So like Saturday and Sunday are holidays. So people have some fewer vacation days this year. Let's see, I can't read the Cyrillic. I live in the UK and I feel that some people trying to take an advantage in conversation because they speak better English than me. Yes, I would imagine that would happen. And that's, again, one of the benefits of being a better speaker. But yes, you have to pay attention for things like that. So unfortunately, I can't try to solve every problem, but hopefully I can help you speak better and you will experience those kinds of problems less. Brandon says, I'm really sorry, but we have to play a game, time to die. Yeah, so the Japanese, it's like, and they're like just like talking a lot. I just said what I said in English before, but like I know you're busy and like can we please like play the game or whatever. And Trecklin says, hi sir, as a delivery man I always try to join your live streaming whenever I have a short break time on the road and get the point of today's topic. Thanks. Japan plays are difficult to read such as stations, says Charlie. Yes, if you don't know, if it's all written in Japanese, then yes, it's difficult, but typically they have like some kind of English, and many places have Chinese or Korean as well, depending on when tourists are coming there. All right, look at that. We've been going for 90 minutes. Wow. All right, and at the end of the board, look at this. At the end, so at the end of the video, the board looks like it's kind of I beat this up pretty badly today, but hopefully you get the point. You'll notice I continue to return to these topics again and again because we get new people coming in all the time, more people who have been learning English as a second language and they want to understand how to actually speak. And again, just to recap, to repeat what I was saying in this video, the point is instead of trying to get a bunch of words and memorize those things, you really want to understand situations. So even if you just pick one situation and focus on that, get a bunch of good examples of that thing, you will feel a lot better about that thing than if you tried to learn some random vocabulary. So most of the English language learning content on YouTube will be lots of random videos about random vocabulary. But they're not really, they might give you some examples, but it doesn't really make you feel confident and certain about the vocabulary. Okay, so there's like a whole ocean of content here, but if you can't use it correctly, it's going to be more frustrating for you. So if you would like help, this is what we do in Fluent for Life. Everything is all organized, so we help you understand like a native, but it's really simple to do, and you don't need a practice partner. You simply need to understand the language better, then you will feel more confident, so you start speaking. All right. If you'd like to learn more, you can click on the links in the description, and I will see you in the next video, which should be Monday, I think. Monday next week, my time, Japan time. Have a fantastic weekend wherever you are, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.